my beloved students, lovers and haters of composition, even the teachers that want to look over my shoulder and take a peek into my classroom. Welcome to the last video in this series, the Art of Styling Sentences ViewMaster edition. As promised, I was going to show you how to do all 20 patterns, and in this video, we got ourselves 16 through 20. And here's the kicker about the book that I'm using. It's called The Art of Styling Sentences, 20 Patterns for Success, 3rd edition. 16 through 20 are actually the easiest out of all the patterns. And you might even, say to yourselves as I'm going over these, man, Kristian, that's kind of ridiculous. That's a pattern. And I'm going to say, yup, it's a pattern. So sometimes we got to hold back, and less is more when we are crafting our sentences and being syntactical ninjas. So without further ado, let's jump right in and take a look at patterns 16 through 20. So just as an aside, please subscribe to the channel if you have not already. So I'm uploading a ton of content on a weekly basis, and we are quickly approaching 20,000 subscribers, which blows my mind. So that's pretty cool. So keep it coming. And then I've said this at the beginning of each video. One, you should do the patterns in order. So start with patterns 1 through 5 in the first video and move sequentially. It makes sense that way. But before you even get into the patterns, I strongly encourage you to check out Strunk and White's book called Write It Right. I have a number of activities in my YouTube channel that teach the 12 sentence types. It's very important that students know all the verbiage and the jargon for the parts of speech, and know, like, have it shored up grammar, punctuation, syntactical rules. Otherwise, these patterns are going to be tough to wield if students don't know the basis of like a colon, a semicolon, if they're making comma splices, don't know how to use dashes and things of that nature. So in the link below in the description, I'm going to put a link to Write It Right, Strunk and White's Write It Right, and then you can just go through my YouTube channel and see the activities from my Nuance Academy that I have for those 12 sentence types. And then I also do a lot of gamification edutainment series with grammar, punctuation, syntax, and all of that is in the YouTube channel. So as always, to teach these 5 patterns, I'm going to Bob Ross my instruction. And it's very simple. Follow my lead. I'm going to give you 5 models on how to do each individual sentence pattern. And then I'm going to pause the video and tell students, you try your hand at the 5 patterns all on your lonesome, and have a teacher or your buddies look over your shoulder. And why do we do this? I teach sentence patterns and sentence types because it's a great way to get voice, rhythm, and flow. I think it's really hard to get the sophistication point in AP, on the AP rubrics for Lang and Lit, if you're writing these truncated, short, staccato, independent clauses atop each other over and over and over and over again. So to get the voice, rhythm, and flow, you really got to pattern your sentences, know the types, punctuate properly, and be a veritable syntactical ninja. All right, so let's jump right in and take a look at pattern 16. So it says paired constructions. And I gave you kind of the sentence stems right in the definition here. This one's a little tricky, but it's, not really once you get the stems. So sometimes in sentences, in conversation, we'll say not only, but also, followed by the subject and the verb. Just as subject verb, so too subject verb. If not subject verb, at least subject verb. So we also do it with the more and the more, the former and the latter. So we're going to be using those stems. So let's unpack it, and I'll give you 5 examples. So here's the first one. Just as my affinity for desserts caused my weight gain, so it goes with fried food. So you can see that I just used one of the stems on that first slide. Just and so. Right, is how you do it. Put the subject and the verb right in the middle of the clauses. The more money the New York Yankees spent at the trade deadline, The more games they lost. So you just reiterate, you parallel the more, right? In between the subject and the verbs. Number 3, Led Zeppelin and the Grateful Dead are two of my favorite bands. The former I never had the fortune of seeing in concert. The latter I toured with from 94 to 98. So we do that all the time, the former, the latter. Um, in terms of constructs. Good contrasting sentence pattern. I like to do this pattern down towards the middle of my syllogisms in the second premise. And in my future and even past writing workshops, I talk about these patterns when I do expository writing. So here's one more just to really unpack it. The more sneakers I buy, the less room I have in my closet for other odds and ends. The more, the less, right? Contrast. Last one. Every novice guitarist experiences 2 setbacks. If not blisters and calluses on the front hand, at least a bit of wrist agony on the strum hand. So you often use these when you're contrasting a couple things, and they kind of read like syllogisms in many ways. If-then statements work very well for this construct. All right, enough of my blathering on about sentence pattern number 16. Stop, and students, try your hand at 5 original, all on your lonesome. Show your peers to make sure you're doing it correct. If you got a teacher looking over your shoulder, show your teacher. Onward to pattern 17. So you got a dependent clause in a sentence slot as subject or object or complement. And again, this is why I talk about Strunk and White's Write It Right. All this verbiage, all this jargon is thoroughly presented in Strunk and White. So my students know all of this verbiage before we get into this. So take a look at the first one for pattern 17. How he got into Harvard baffles the heck out of me. Let's just go to number 2 and see if we can see the pattern. Number 2, what one cannot describe with language, one cannot fathom with the mind. Let's do number 3, and again, see if you can see the pattern. Why college-educated people tend to be proportionally more obese continues to baffle the medical community. Pattern. What do we got here? Number 4, how Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, and Sammy Sosa aren't in the Baseball Hall of Fame is beyond my comprehension. And the last one, who killed Davy Moore at the end of the film will forever remain a mystery. So what's the pattern here? Well, one of the things I'm seeing is that exemplar number 1 begins how, exemplar number 2 begins what, exemplar number 3 begins why, exemplar number 4 begins how, and exemplar number 5 begins who. See the pattern? So give that an original sentence 5 times for pattern number 17. Give it a whirl. Again, peer edit with your buddies. Teachers, look over the students' shoulders, make sure they're doing it correctly. These really get easy as we get towards pattern number 20. So pattern 18 says absolute construction, noun plus participle, anywhere you so want it to be in the sentence. All right, pattern. Number 1. The toy mouse deeply buried beneath the dresser, my cat Cooper paced and meowed to bring my attention to the matter. It's a very interesting sentence construct. Seldom used, but it's very useful. Not having happened yet in this lifetime, I'm hoping the New York Knicks will bring home a championship before I kick the can. Right? Just kind of an inverted sentence paradigm here. Look at this one. My first attempts having fallen on deaf ears, I asked Samantha one last time to the prom. So in many ways, you're beginning the sentence where most people would typically end. Here's another one. The canvas being blank, I Bob Ross how to write a declarative thesis for my ELA class. Right? And the last one. The 9th inning was played after all, the rain having stopped just before the sun set. All right, so just kind of an inverted, twist to this one. And it's just kind of, toying with the syntax a little bit and flip-flopping the arrangement of the sentence. You know the routine. Pause here. Give pattern 18 a whirl. Try it 5 times just to really master it. Pattern 19. The short, simple sentence for relief of dramatic effect. Now, when would we ever use pattern number 1? Just simply saying something like, absolutely not. I know I use it in sentences, where I drop my thesis and then I just really want to hammer my thesis. I'll use this pattern. Or in the conclusion of my syllogisms, I often use this pattern. And in my conclusions of the essay, my conclusion paragraph of the essay, after I come full circle with my argument and like articulate the universal truth or the accident or the universal theme, I often will drop little sentences like this. So take a look at number 2. It's not funny. Number 3, dumber than a box of rocks. Number 4, let's hug it out. And number 5, time forever ticks. So this one's very easy. Again, you got to think of the purpose. So oftentimes students will use write this way if they're a young, struggling, emerging student. So you got to use your independent clauses and your short, simple declaratives very sparingly. There's a purpose for them, and it's usually for emphasis, as is the case with all 5 of these. Give pattern 19 a whirl. 5 original sentences, share them with each other. Pattern number 20. Last but not least, we are at the end of our 20 sentence patterns. Da-da. The deliberate fragment. This is a funky one too. Check it out. Based on science, but he works for Big Pharma. All right, so check this out. Number 2, the next time, maybe. Number 3, blatant tomfoolery and shenanigans, right? So it's just deliberate fragments. All or nothing. So you can do this all you want in your writing. You're kind of rule breaking, but it is a pattern. But for snow days, all right, is my last one. So if you get into AP literature, I know most students that watch my videos are AP students. When you get into AP literature, you might stumble upon Hemingway, Faulkner, Steinbeck. Those 3 in particular use this sentence structure, the sentence pattern quite often. Again, you go sparingly on it for dramatic effect, for emphasis. It's good to throw on the tag of a thesis, the bottom of the syllogisms, the conclusion of syllogisms, and the conclusion paragraph of the essay. So give pattern 20 a whirl, right? With all of these, of course, go slow and look at each other's work. I'm convinced the more you see, the better you become, and the less mistakes, or I should say happy little accidents, you make. All right, feel free to drop me an email if you got any questions, teachingwritingcoach@gmail.com. I love to respond to students and teachers, so any old question you got, drop it my way. Note that I'm a lead teacher for the National Writing Project. I present for NCTE, the College Board Perfection Learning, throughout the calendar year. So to stay abreast of my comings and goings, my PDs, which most are free, some are for a nominal fee, go to my webpage, teachinghowtowrite.com. There's a whole bunch of stuff on that webpage, so a lot of free content. And then students, I have a writing, a tutoring business called Write at Ivy Write. And one of the things I'm chiefly known for is this when I work with students. I'm really expert at getting kids to write killer college personal statements. So when you come to that point in your journey and you want someone expert to work with, I'm your guy. So I used to work in admissions at Brown University. I did both of my graduate degrees there, and have helped thousands of students in my 20+ year career write the personal statements and the supplements. So especially if you're applying to really good schools, I'm the guy to help you out with that. Or if you want to make sure that you crush your AP exams, or if you just want some help shoring up your skills, your compositional skills, then drop me an email and we can talk about working together, me being your tutor. So that's it from here. That's the end of sentence patterns. We're done. Yay. I'll see you in the next writing workshop.